Rotarians and guests, it's Farm Day again, and Rotary likes to honor farmers and ag business. It's a big part of the community. We like to acknowledge it. It's a big part of the county, and it's a big part of the state, and it's a very big part of the country. And farm is a unique business as well. I like to tell stories, so I'll give you one. I was down at Farm Science Review a couple of years ago. Professor comes out from Ohio State, and he's talking. I was sitting there with some reputables on the other side of the county, farmers, and guy comes out and he says, okay, if you plant corn this year, you're going to lose money. I thought about that, and you know, that's a big part of my crop rotation. Got to do it. And I said, okay, so you want me to go out and do work to lose money? And so, I mean, what are we, stupid? I don't know, but then it gets better. And I remember my father told me this. He said, well, and we must love it or we wouldn't do it. And my father always joked that he said, it's farming's a hobby, is what he always told me. You remember that, Peter? Did he ever tell you that? My dad said, farming's a hobby, you better love it or you better go do something else. And he was right. But then last year, last year was a pretty good year for everybody. And I don't know about you guys, but my bankers like black ink a lot more than red ink. Right, Greg? Mm-hmm. And we've been using the red pen more than we liked it in years back, but it's pretty good. This year looks good, even though we got Brent's going to touch on some stuff, but it looks good so far. And I was thinking about that. We were coming up, and I said, it seems like it will be, but we don't have one seed in the ground yet. But I don't know sure about my neighbor Burkhold. He might, but he goes earlier than me. But I can't pick on him. He's not here. But with local ag business, I asked Brent. I called him up. I asked Brent Peterson to come speak. He's the general manager of Jewell Grain. Been there 24 years. 24 years. Okay. And then Jewell Grain and Hicksville Grain merged July last year, and so now we're from one side of the county to the other. They control that business and help us out. So I'm going to turn it over to Brent. He's going to talk about last year, this year, pros and cons, and whatever else. So thank you.
Well, thanks for having me today. So like Bryce said, I've been the general manager of Jewell Grain for the last 24 years. We have 6 locations today. We're in Jewell, Okolona, Nay. And then last year in July, we did add the Hicksville locations. So through a merger of the 2 companies, for those that don't know that much about us, let me share a little bit about what we do. We're a farmer cooperative. We have a board of directors and a little over 800 stockholders across our trade area. Today we have 44 employees. We do agronomy at 3 different locations. Some chemicals, dry fertilizer, liquid nitrogen, anhydrous ammonia. We do custom application, variable rate sampling, spreading. And we offer 4 different brands of seed. We have 4 grain elevators with a total of 3.65 million bushel of storage. And we still have a feed mill where we grind and mix feed for people, custom mix. And then we sell bagged feed at a couple other locations. So Bryce said, kind of looking back at last year, I think it was a pretty good year for farmers in our area. Got off to a good start. Everything was planted in a very timely fashion. Good stands and everything. Input costs were relatively low. Then the 1st of July, when the wheat was about ready to be harvested, the rain set in, making it kind of difficult to get the wheat out and causing some quality issues. But even with the rain, it was one of the best crops that we've ever had in wheat. So I know there's not a lot of wheat growing up around this part of the world, but go to the eastern half of the county, there's a lot of wheat grown, and got a lot of wheat over 100 bushel an acre, which is a really good crop. Probably it's better than 25% higher than what the 5-year average was. And prices were up as well. So I use the National Agricultural Statistics Service for my yield and pricing comparisons, and their average price of wheat for the last 5 years was $4.81. Last year, our average price for wheat through the marketing year was $6.35, which is a little over $1.50 higher than the 5-year average. Soybean crop we had wasn't a big record breaker, but for Defiance County, NASS put it at 50.1 bushel an acre, which is 45.6 bushel higher than the 5-year average. Or the 5-year average is 45.6, so about 5 bushel and higher. and the price was $13.10, which the 5-year average is $9.69, so it was $3.40 higher than the 5-year average. And then came the corn harvest. Some of the biggest corn yields, a lot of 200 bushel corn. Some of the best corn farmers have said they've ever seen, but we had a wet and a long drug out fall just because it kept raining, and some of it even lasted into the first of this year. NAS put the Defiance County average on corn at 190 bushel an acre, which is 40 bushel higher than the 5-year average of 151. And the price was even better too. The average price was $5.45 versus the average price 5 years prior was $3.91. So I think great yields and good prices made for a pretty good year for the farmer. So those are a few of my thoughts on 21, but let's talk about where we are today. So don't have to tell you, grain prices were moving quite a bit higher even before the Russian-Ukraine situation started. May wheat futures, I don't have to talk about wheat again, but May wheat futures were up the limit every day from the first day of the invasion a week and a half ago until today, right? I just looked when I was done eating lunch and wheat's down 85 cents right now, but that's the first day it's not been lock limit up. So Russia and Ukraine, for example, account for about 30% of the wheat grown in the world. You know, some of the questions in a lot of people's minds, and unfortunately I'm going to have more questions about 22 than I'll have answers, but you know, will those farmers in Ukraine and Russia have the supplies and the fertilizer they need to grow their crop in this year? And where will prices go if they don't grow a crop? So the month of February here is when we establish our crop insurance prices, and this year we established the highest crop insurance price ever in history. Guys that do have some 21 crop left to market, it's hard to decide when to pull the trigger because it was going up ahead of time, and now in the last week and a half it's just continued to go higher every day. But unfortunately input costs are chasing right along with the grain price. So fertilizer prices started going up last summer and they haven't looked back. So all of them, nitrogen, phosphate, potash, are all doubling price, and some are almost triple in price compared to a year ago. I think supply will be okay for spring, but what's the future hold? We got the potentials for tariffs coming in on nitrogen fertilizer imported into the U.S. So the question is, how will this affect our pricing as we move forward? Will Russia stop exporting fertilizer to the world with the Ukraine situation going on? Well, Russia and Belarus, which is a part of Russia, they account for almost 40% of the potash that's exported in the world. Now, most of that goes to South America, but it's still going to have a price on impact on the price. What's the price of natural gas in the U.S. and Europe going to do? So Europe stopped producing nitrogen last year because their gas was so high priced. You know, what's that price going to do, and will they go back to producing nitrogen products like they did in the past? And you know, if fertilizer wasn't enough, we got some chemical shortages or tight situations too. Glyphosate and glufosinate, which are probably the most commonly used, are some of the tightest products, but it is affecting others. And it is affecting the price, raising the price on some of that too. So you add in the high price farm equipment and cost and labor cost and land cost, it ought to be another interesting year. But definitely we're not in traditional times. A tremendous amount of volatility in a grain market, in a fertilizer market, in an oil market, and gas. But I know today that 22 offers a lot more questions than it does answers. But I'm confident the American farm will prevail. So I appreciate, I know there's several, you know, since you farmers are guests today, you know, appreciate the jobs that you guys do. And I'm excited to have a location here in Hicksville and look forward to working with some of you farmers to see what the future holds. So, thank you.
Any questions?
We take any questions? Sure.
I've got a question.
Sure.
When you did this merger, everybody is pretty much running the same. I mean,
So when we merged the two companies together, there was a lot of similarities. Some things have changed and some things haven't. But it has gone well so far. We had a great fall. So that was one of the reasons we trade in like areas where we were overlapping in spraying and business we were doing already. We had some like customers. So I think when we were going to the stockholder list, when we did that, Hicksville had about 140 or 50 stockholders. I don't remember the exact number, 60. There was 40 of those that were already were stockholders in our company in Jewell. So there was a lot of similarities there, so we have continued to operate. We operate the 2 Hicksville locations, the grain and the grinding location all year. And the Mark Center location is just a seasonal house for ammonia, and we use it for extra storage and stuff like that. So.
Well, I see that Todd's here, so you didn't fire Todd then?
No,
He
we
always
kept
did his
Todd.
job?
We kept Todd.
Wasn't that lucky yet?
I have a question.
Sure.
I'm a non-farmer, but, with the price of gas so high, does ethanol, come into play? And would that be something that could ease our gas prices?
Well, it does come into play, you know, and it will, I don't know that it'll help ease the gas price because that's based off oil, but you know, it will help the farmer, because the fact is, if the gas price goes higher, the ethanol guy will be willing to pay more for his gas, for his ethanol, for his corn to make the ethanol. I don't know that we'll ever get enough, because I think 15% is the max blend you can put in ethanol. And they tried to get it to where they could put more in out west, but I don't know that this ever come to be, so I don't know that it's gonna give you a lot of relief on the gas. So. Yes?
Do you know how many acres are going out this year, the county, as far as farmable acres? I assume it's going down because of the solar projects and stuff.
I couldn't answer that question, I don't know. But every year we lose a little more farm ground to urbanization and, you know, different projects, so, but I couldn't answer that question.
Do you think you'll have trouble getting your hands on fertilizer and other things like that, or you think just the price will go up?
I think supply could be a challenge. I don't think this spring is gonna be so much of a challenge, but I think as we move forward, it could be a challenge. And the price is gonna be, it's gonna be probably the highest price we've ever seen people pay, so, could be. Hopefully they get the conflict resolved sooner rather than later, and that'll help ease some of these tensions. And, but you know, the biggest fear in the market, and that's what's driving it today, is the unknown. So, we've never been here where we've had a country like Russia and Ukraine where they control so much agriculture, natural resources, that's had a conflict since World War II. So, I mean, and back then, the dynamics were completely different, you know, than what we are today. So, you're on, you know, you just don't know. You just don't know. You know, I get asked that question all the time. Well, how, you know, just with all the market upswing we've had in the last week and a half, they say, well, how high is it gonna go? You know, I have no idea. You know, wheat could go to $20, you know, beans could go to $20, I don't know, but it could come back just as fast as it goes up. So, it's a supply-demand situation. The other thing you have is you got a lot of fund traders where, you know, the market, it's all electronic today, so if Bryce here decides he don't wanna get the combine out and the planter out, he could just sit in his shed there and buy and sell options and commodity futures himself, and there's people trading that stuff sitting in their basement that has no idea what a corner bean plant looks like, and that adds more volatility to the grain side too, so. Can't say there won't be supply issues, but you know, it's too early to call that today, so. Yes?
Is the OEPA putting more restrictions on with the runoff and water, you know, the intrusions and everything? I know that's been an impact for years with communities, not only just farmers, but villages, cities, and all that kind of thing. Are they putting more restrictions, or are they working with you?
Well, they developed the H2 Ohio program this a year ago, you know, to help control phosphorus runoff and nitrogen runoff, and you know, a lot of people participating in that because they're getting paid in the watershed to do that. So that's not directly driven by the Ohio EPA, but you know, it's kind of a spin-off of that. So, and they're committed to clean up Lake Erie, and you know, so that program's going to continue on. So, but that, you know, most of the time the farmer benefits from that by changing farming practices or something like that. So we help facilitate that with soil testing or variable rate and some of those things, but you know, that's the end result of that. Any other questions?
Price of land, farmland. The price of farmland.
It's crazy.
They had a sale in Wasion last night, $9,600 an acre, and they decided not to sell.
Well, one thing, they're never gonna make any more land.
That's what they say.
They're never gonna make you more land, and as grain prices and these prices continue to go higher, you know, the appetite for some to buy more is always there, and, you know, some people look at it as an investment because you can't repo it or take it away, but, yeah.
Can you use some fish fertilizer from a salmon farm in Pioneer, Ohio?
I don't know how much phosphorus it has in it yet, we'll have to see.
It's not a good thing.
That, well, thank you for having me as your speaker today.